Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I apparently had the best sleep of my life last night. Who knew? Yeah,
um, yeah, man, mine's never that high. Mine's always kind of a wreck, so it's
yeah,
interesting. So,
yeah.
okay, what time did you go to bed last night?
Um, 9:45.
Dang, dude.
I got in bed at 9:35 ish, and I was asleep probably within 15 minutes, I would guess. So, but that's not uncommon for me. Like I'm a to bed at 10 o'clock type of person, and up at 6. That's my 8 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
not me, man.
that's how I do it. But even when I do that, like I'm pretty consistently on that. Um, the recovery percentage is not always that high. So
Yeah,
really interesting.
mine has actually gone down. I've gotten a couple of warnings last week that I need to be more mindful over my sleep and my routines because it's just been kind of all over the place. So,
Mm, yeah.
yeah.
Have your routines changed at all?
Uh, there is no real like nighttime routine, right? I have a routine for transitioning out of work mode into like dad mode, family mode.
Yeah.
But I don't have like, okay, cool, it's 10 p.m. Let's start the wind down. Like I don't have anything that regimented.
Oh, okay. Just cause. Just
Um, this is gonna sound weird, but so the period after bedtime is like Melissa and I time, right? So like I don't really try to put a whole lot of like stipulations or rules around it.
mhm.
And then because it's a kid, she doesn't really like to go to bed at the right times and stuff like that. So it's a little like
Yeah.
I can't get in there and clean it up without overdoing it. So I just kind of like let it take its own course, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
went to this thing in Plano over the weekend, and it was an Alice in Wonderland scavenger hunt using your phones, right? So it's like a Pokemon meets Alice in Wonderland thing around downtown Plano, and it
Mhm.
was rad. It was very very cool, fun, enjoyable. But Melissa was in like charge of the whole thing, and I said, "Cool. Like, what time are we leaving? What's the plan?" And she made a comment, and I was like, "Look, I can plan all of this, or I can plan none of it. Like, this is kind of how things operate for me these days. I need to have all of it, or I need to like completely,
Yeah.
I can't do anything halfway, kind of deal."
Right. Yeah.
And she was like, "I can respect that." And it was just like a cool little moment of just like awareness amongst each other, kind of thing.
Yeah. I totally get that. I think that's
Yeah,
always my preference. But I think maybe when you're stressed or like, I'm trying to think if there's anything else in particular. But just like when you're feeling more stressed than usual, it's even more that way
yeah,
for me. Where it's
absolutely, yeah, for sure.
yeah, just take it. Just take it. Otherwise, it's mine.
Yeah, and nobody really wants all the stipulations I'm going to put into something like that when it comes to that kind of stuff. So it's just easier to let someone else you run with this kind of situation. Good
Yeah.
morning, Michelle. I
Hey,
hope you're
Michelle.
I hope you're doing well.
Yes, yes. In fact, I am going to use some of the jam today that I have from her because I've got some bagels that are begging for something. So
Yes, you put jam on your bagels.
I have started doing that. I saw that somewhere, and I was like, huh.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's actually pretty good. So I'm
Hmm.
normally a butter or a maybe a cream cheese. Um,
I think I'm cream cheese only. I can't imagine putting butter or jelly on a bagel. Now toast is a totally different situation, but bagel, eh, I think it's just kind of cream cheese only.
yeah. All right. Well, I like a butter. Um, because it soaks it up so nicely. Because there's so much bread, it just really soaks the butter all the way through. So I makes for a nice bite.
Hmm.
So uh, yeah. So okay, we had some back and forth over the weekend.
A little
Uh,
bit, yeah.
a little bit.
I
That's
was
fine.
not in my Slack as much as I probably normally am.
Yeah, and I was actually in Slack more than I normally am on the weekend, which is kind of
Hmm.
funny. Um, But I think I was working on that project for work, and so I was sitting in front of my computer, so I was looking for excuses to take a break. That's what it was. So
Yep.
I would hop into my different Slack channels when I was getting tired of working. So um, it's interesting when people ask, where did you get stuck? What happened? What went on this week? That seems like a hard question for people to answer, doesn't it? Like when you get into a group that like really like talks all the time, like yours is pretty active, especially among like say the top 10 people in the group.
Hmm.
But like there's all these people that don't answer the question. Right.
I
So my
know.
question
Yeah.
on that is it just they're just not into slacking, or do you think that's a hard question to answer?
Ooh. Um.
Because we know some people don't slack, but
Yeah. No. No.
that
That's a really
that
great
that one in
question.
particular seems harder for people to answer than the other ones that you ask.
I talk about this a lot. I think there's this kind of awareness that happens uh, when you're an entrepreneur, right? Like when you work for yourself for a while, you like this is really weird, but a friend of mine has talked about it kind of feeling like bipolar. Things are great and you're great, and things are bad and you're bad, and in situation. And this happens so frequently as a seller and entrepreneur and stuff like this. You're just not as concerned about down energy, down time. You're just like aware that these things are going to happen to you. And I feel like it's a little bit around that. Someone comes up and says, "Hey, like, how's it going?" Well, things are fine. Things are
Mhm.
good.
Right.
And I'll say that to
Up and
certain
down.
certain people, because it feels like they're asking to be polite, so therefore I'm answering from a place of politeness, not from a place of detail, you know.
Yeah.
But if I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, if I'm talking to another entrepreneur who's been through some struggle, been through some things and stuff like that, I don't take the networking answer of, oh, things are fine, right? I'll get real with people. Well, I'm struggling with this, but I don't do that with everybody. So it's one of those things. I think that one, it is kind of a hard question to answer because lots of people don't. I don't think they really. There's too much autopiloting. I think is really the
Mm.
problem, Jake. I think too many
Yeah.
people are just like autopiloting, and then they get to Saturday, and they either take Saturday off or they decide to work on Saturday, but there's no real ownership around the idea that like you're having to work Saturday because you didn't use your time very well throughout the week kind of situation. For as
Mm.
much as I talk about getting a whole lot of work done and like getting lots of stuff done and my calendar's very full, I don't have meetings on Saturdays, right? I'll meet with friends over Zoom, but I don't do work calls on Saturdays. I don't do interviews on Saturdays or Sundays. So like I'm this busy and I get all this thing done and I'm still done no later than 6 or 7 every night. So it's not like I'm working 24 hours a day and stuff like that. But I think so many people over their to-do list with a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter, and it kind of puts them behind the eight ball, so that way they can feel that bustle because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel productive as opposed to good morning, Mike Tao. As opposed to being
Yeah.
very thoughtful. This is stuff I need to get do. This is the stuff I've actually done. Here's how much time I have left, and here's what I need to do with that time, so that way I can. And that's why I try to pose the question the way that I do. What do you need to do to end the week
Right.
well,
Right.
kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I maybe it's like a community thing. Maybe it's an awareness thing. Maybe it's just like a hard thing to answer if you don't really know people. Because I do feel like when I do a good job of asking that question regularly, the third or fourth time in a row, regularly asking that question, it seems to get some good response and some chatter back and forth. When I don't do a good job of kind of seeding that question regularly and leading the way and starting the conversation, I find that people don't have much to say and respond to it. So
Yep. Yep. I think you're right. That's what I was thinking. It was similar to what you were saying, which is people don't take stock of their own progress on a super like regular basis, like daily and even weekly. They're just
yeah,
like an autopilot, and they just keep rolling. And because to answer a question like that thoughtfully, you have to know some of the things that you've been working on and what you're headed towards, and
yeah,
some milestones along the way, if you've hit them or not, what got in your way, like, and if you don't naturally think that way, I think that's a hard question to answer. So even the stock I'm fine may not be necessarily even just because you don't know the person that well. It's just like, well, I think I'm good, but like they don't know.
Yeah.
They know what, which is
Well,
I've been there for sure.
and to me, the very interesting thing about that, right, is then that leads to like better question creation, right? Because if you just show up and you say, "Hey, how are things going?" "Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine," and you're a consultant, a coach, or someone who does something for others, like you shouldn't be letting that stand,
Mhm.
right? You should be asking questions deeper. You should be changing your questions, using different like types of questions, right? Whitlock, one of his favorite questions is, what's your favorite part of today?
Mhm.
Whoa, right? And the specificity of that question is going to make someone think through the situation differently. They're not just going to autopilot with like, "Oh, things are fine." Well, what was the best thing about today? And then the thing that I really geek out is the same thing happens with referrals, right? You show up, you talk to someone. "Hey, do you know anyone I should be talking to?" "No,
Mhm.
but if I think of someone, I can definitely let you know."
Yeah.
Whereas if you show up and you say, "Hey, a lot of people I talk to are struggling with like hiring salespeople, finding the time to coach these salespeople in the fundamentals that they need to do the job well." And then other people have salespeople, they have a team, but they might not be using tech that allows them to really get it done at the pace that they would like. Do you know anyone who's dealing with those things? The specificity with which I delivered that ask is going to make someone actually cycle through their head a little bit before they say, well, no, kind of situation. So the clarity that you're asking the question is going to drive the clarity of the answer as well.
Yes. Yes. Good point. Yeah, and I like asking a really specific question like that,
Hmm.
and then backing out, right, to get to everybody. Because
Yeah.
you'll actually miss people by being really specific with questions, but that's a good thing also
Hmm.
because then they'll be like, "No, but I did think
Exactly.
of this."
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's where making the assumptions that we're doing as salespeople, because we've had all these conversations, doing some of that stuff out loud. So if you're saying this, if you're saying that it's hard to hire salespeople, does that also mean that you're behind for your goals? Like that's an assumption that you would make as a salesperson who's selling sales coaching and sales training,
Right.
but say it out loud so that way they can go there with you. Okay, so what does that mean for the rest of the organization? And then you're already talking about impact, about like how much like the pain of this and how it's felt inside of the organization, as opposed to, "Oh, you're having trouble hiring. Oh, you definitely need me. Let me send you a proposal." You're
Right.
skipping
Yeah.
all the heavy, weighty attachment that you both need, the prospect and the salesperson, to carry this relationship to the finish line.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Very much so.
So
That's that's what happens when you just go straight to pitching, right?
yeah, well,
It's all the
you
good
know,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight to pitching.
That's right. I, yeah. I've been trying to figure out a way if there's an option on LinkedIn to create some sort of auto responder that helps people see that they're pitching already without being like completely rude. Like so, I don't know. Like I was just thinking because lots of people get this stuff, but especially when you're own a business, people pitch you all day, every day.
Oh, all
on
day, every
LinkedIn.
day.
And I just wish there was something that would say like you try again. You went straight to the pitch or something. Just some sort of autoresponder like that. That way it's not like, no, because maybe they have something that's interesting, but it's not like, "Oh, a pitch, bye," you know?
Yeah.
So,
I don't
try
know.
again.
I mean, so
Round 2.
LinkedIn does give you the option to sign up for like an auto response message, which is kind of bizarre to me because they don't want anyone using any automations, but you're totally allowed to use their automations,
I'll say
right?
unless it's theirs, yeah.
And I've used it and I had it like set up so that way it said, "Hey, I'm offline right now. I'll check these in a little bit and get back to you." And you can't imagine the amount of like terrible, kind of inflamed emotional responses I was getting. "Oh, look at you," like all of this stuff. It was crazy. So I turned it off and stopped it.
It's funny. It would
Um,
also be funny because you would see all these sort of auto responses that clearly didn't see what your message said, that kept pitching you, so you could see that they're in
yes.
sequence.
Hmm.
And you can kinda
Absolutely.
see now just if you know what sequences are out there, but even if you don't, you're like, "Oh, oh, okay, okay." A
Yeah.
robot.
Yeah. And My advice to everybody is that if you're tired of being pitched, just respond. Because normally when you respond, it breaks the automation, right? Because these people are building these automations that way it just keeps messaging you because it just wants a response. So just respond. Remove me from your list. I am not a prospect for you, kind of situation. And largely that shuts it down. And if they're like, I've started making a big deal about it, like, hey, super happy to be connected, big fan of networking, not a big fan of insta pitches and a bunch of like automations and follow up. Let's keep it human in here. That's kind of my standard response whenever someone is requesting me and it looks like it might get a little grifty, pitchy.
Yes, for sure. And I've accepted a few more than I normally do these days. I'm kind of on a accept. So
yeah, if you want to get better at outreach, accept some outreach. Just like if you want to be a good content creator, you need to be looking at other people's content. It is crazy what some people think is good outreach. Like these bricks of messages from people that no one has ever even never talked to you. I'm not giving you 5 paragraphs full of attention. It needs to be short and quick and chatty. Exactly. And try to initiate a response right there. I do believe anyone who's like trying to like ship someone to like a webinar or like off platform and like the first messages is fundamentally setting themselves up for failure, right? Because people want some back and forth before. It's not a mailbox in the form that you're going to be able to send 2,500 messages and people show up to the webinar. It doesn't work that way. It's a social media mailbox and people chat.
Yeah. And what I have seen work as well is you can do something more along those lines where you're trying to educate, especially if you keep them on platform where people will have like articles written on LinkedIn and they'll just send a quick message over that says, hey, I've seen people like you, your team work through some really awesome stuff by using this technique that I wrote about. If you're interested, go check this out. Like just kind of start getting conversation rolling around something. But that's all that stuff. And Mike Tao, there's only one. Are you kidding me? There's only one thing that no response. It's because now I want to just go back and try a bunch of stuff on you. Just be like, you said.
I think it's hilarious that there's only one that is like that, because like it's very much like a feel thing for me. Like I try to be an open networker because I network a lot, and so like I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. Here are the things that are an instant no. One, if you don't have a photo of yourself, super sorry. Like, what are you thinking? Like, this is a social media platform, can't do it. If the photo is your brand and not yourself, no. What are you doing? Once again, you're missing the point. If you're too assumptive, right? Like I got this thing the other day and it was like, hey, and I wasn't even the right target for this. It was about wholesaling investments and stuff like this because I used to be an investment advisor 10 years ago.
Right.
I still get those kinds of messages, which are very frustrating. Like, guys, there's a little notch in your LinkedIn that says, are they currently in this field?
Right.
And you should be applying that because 10 years ago, John would have been probably super excited to talk to you about advising and different kind of networks and programs. But, sales coach John, not really in the market for that stuff. So to me is always very interesting. It doesn't take anything to go look at the profile before you send the messages.
That's the point. They're not.
I know.
Filtering software. But social media is so instantaneous. And I really, really think like TikTok and Snapchat made this even worse. And Be Real, all those ones that are just like instantaneous. Like if I've been out of a position for 6 months, I get mad when I get a pitch for my last. You're an agency. Like, I've been an agency in like 9 months, y'all. Come on. Like, it's one of those things.
Mike Tao, does that first line say we have some connections in common? I'm curious what that line is that rings your bell.
Yeah, me too. Because this one definitely, I way back that they started. I think somebody taught some group of people this, and it was like, "Hey, I saw that you did this thing with this company, like whatever it is. Hey, I saw that you won the like. I got one Friday that said, hey, I saw you won the 2016 SEO of the Year award with so and so company. That's awesome. And then they were pitching me SEO stuff. I'm like, okay, so number one, I won the best SEO of the year. Number two, it's 6 years ago. Number three, you're pitching me on what I'm an expert in. This should be interesting.
That is fantastic. I love that.
That is complete robot. Like, if it says SEO, they must need SEO.
Oh, I'd like to discuss likely work together. That's interesting. Yeah. What I don't like is sometimes people are fearful of certain language, right? Especially if it feels like selling. They're like, hey, there might be some overlap. There might be some opportunities to partner. If you have something to sell me, that is not a partnership. You are hoping to get me to sell something. And these people who are like, hey, we want to partner with you, and and then they drop a bomb that like, hey, this is a sale, is I think that's
bait and switch.
Yeah, I think that's bait and switch. I'm not a fan, and I see people talking about this on LinkedIn, to send a connection request and then a couple of days later to go endorse them for skills. Don't endorse me for skills if we have not worked together, because the only thing it means is you want me to buy from you, right?
100%.
Like
every time.
Like I know it's so weird, because like I'm sure that if I wasn't me and I didn't use the platforms the way that I do and spend so much time on them, that if someone was like, oh hey, I'm gonna endorse John for like sales or CRM or something else like this, that I'd be like, oh, thank you very much. But because I know how it works, I'm like, get out of here. No way. No way. Like there's better ways to get my attention in a positive way than making it look like you actually respect my craft and what I do when you have zero knowledge of actually what that is. Like it does the opposite. It pisses me off, and we're not doing anything together.
Well, and you can do that in the comments. I did it yesterday in the comments for someone I eventually hope to have on the podcast. Like I follow them around. I comment on their stuff, and I compliment things that I like about what they're doing on the post in the comment, and tell them why it's useful. Like, so that's a way more effective way to eventually get on the radar,
Yeah. Like once again, it's still doing the bare minimum. Well, let me go endorse their top 3 things. What if they're garbage at those top 3 things?
Right.
What
if they didn't put them there? What if LinkedIn auto filled that stuff? They will.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because like there for a while, like I'm still getting endorsements for like banking and stuff, and I'm like, okay, like and you can go in there and yes, have some control over that stuff. You can hide and adjust.
You can take it off, but you just never think about that sort of thing.
Yeah, don't endorse me if we've not worked together. Like, it's not going to get you the meeting that you want to have. I promise.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how was last week overall? Did you get everything done that you wanted to get done?
It was fine. Let's see. Let me take a look here. Yeah, it's okay. So I had a couple of things happen. I had some good stuff happen. I had a compliment from a sales team that I'm training right now. We're getting ready to wrap towards the end of our stuff, and actually reached out to our CEO, which about the training I was doing. So that was really, really cool. And that's always nice because it came from left field, because I was in a meeting with the CEO and was like, oh, and by the way, so we got on a Zoom call. They wanted to chat about some stuff, and your name came up. So good job. Keep doing what you're doing, So that's like the first unsolicited piece of like actual, praise I've gotten in this role, that's always how you want it to happen, right? You don't want to ever have to like go look for it or go build testimonials and like, so that's perfect. So that was cool. That actually really made my week, because it was midweek and I was like grinding through stuff. And then I think I told you that, the way that kind of my work has been set up is I inherited a book. And so the schedule mostly came with it, because they were already working through this stuff on certain schedules. And I'm finally to the point where I'm getting to like either offboard some of the stuff I was doing and onboard new stuff and reset my schedule. And for anybody else, it's probably silly sounding, but you and I talk about controlling our day so much that it's actually been like a really nice last week or two where I've gotten to really reset my calendar on big portions of it. So that's actually the big win for me last week. That's
huge.
That re-calendaring.
Nothing makes me feel fidgety at this point like not having control over my time. Right. And just feeling like I have to show up to a meeting and there's no flexibility in it because it's like it was set by someone else or too high like that starts to make me feel avoidant a little bit. So I can totally respect that. Good morning, Dylan.
Yep. What about you? What's the best part of last week for you?
Let's see. The best part of last week. Well, let me look at my calendar, Jake. I can tell you.
Yep.
What's going on here with my system? Hold on 1 second, y'all. My computer just doesn't want to come up on the other screen. That's very weird.
Lovely.
There we go. Okay, so last week we talked about my difficulty kind of like wanting to get back in the saddle on Monday because it was Thanksgiving the week before.
Oh yeah.
I would say the best part of last week was we're doing a project to launch a newsletter for Adapted Growth, and we're working with someone who is in the Sherpa community to help us write this thing because I want it to be consistent. B, it needs to not be sourced by me, right? Because that's just going to kind of drag things and slow things down. So working with this woman, Courtney, who's in the Sherpa community about trying to do this thing the right way, we had a great conversation about the direction that we want the newsletter to go in. I'm very excited about it. This is something I've wanted to do the entire year, but I wanted to do it the right way. So I feel like we're now moving in the right direction for launching the newsletter, kind of 1/1, which will be kind of the last goal for this year to work on. I've already hit the monetary goal. I've already hit the other goals that we already had planned. So this is kind of the last lagging goal because I want to make sure that someone owns it. That's not Melissa. That's not myself. We can help pour in and contribute, but we'd like it to be owned by someone else so that way they can put their full focus on it. And we're not just kind of doing it as we got to send out the newsletter kind of situation. So, So that was really good. It was too many Zooms last week. So I need to be a little bit more mindful over how many people I let assign time, right? Because I was doing interviews for an SDR role and I'm hiring for, and then just lots of regular networking, all the usual coaching sessions, everything else like that. So that was all last week. My very first coaching client is cycling off, which is both nice and also a little bit, sad. His company has been kind of paying for his monthly time, and his company's kind of tightening the purse strings, which is going to happen to everybody. You should be thoughtful about this.
Yes.
And so he can't really pay for it out of pocket at the time being. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet once a month at a happy hour. And I was like, you can ask questions and then you'll get a little bit of help, but it's not going to be a recurring time on the calendar during the workday. And,
Right.
That works out well for both of us because I've been I was coaching him before I was a sales coach, just kind of helping him out with stuff. And so we've worked together for a very long time. I'm excited to see his growth. And I'm kind of bummed, but also it kind of feels like it's time for us to kind of shift the relationship a little bit. So that was interesting. And Saturday was awesome, going to Plano with the family and doing an outdoors event, but it had a technical slant to it because I need a little technical thing or else I find it hard to get really excited about stuff. So that was good. It was just too busy of a week. So by Friday, whenever I think you checked in with me on Friday, I'd done so much, I was feeling like I'd forgotten something, and then over the weekend, I'll have these dreams that I have to go to a math class that I've not gone to for the entire semester. And there's a test and I'm not prepared for it. This is my stress dream. So it's either that or I'm waiting tables and my section is really big and I'm not going to go check on this table in years. Right.
That's called a memory.
Those are my two stress dreams. Right. So
yes. I have
good week. I need to dial it back. I need to dial it back a little bit this week so that way I don't feel quite as neurotic by the end of it.
Yeah, for sure. I've absolutely had those exact dreams before. The math one's funny, right? I guess I think that's probably a human one, right? If you just there's something you did all year that you should have done, and you show up and there's a test and you don't know any of the answers on the test and you're freaking out, or something like that because you
Yeah.
didn't. And that actually sounds like sophomore year of college to me. Is what that sounds like.
Yeah, it feels
I didn't
like,
go to class. I just
yeah, I've never had that dream until I went to college, and then I decided, well, so like my truck died, or my vehicle at the time died, and so I was out of school for a week, and I went back after 1 week, and I hadn't missed anything, and I was like, well, if that's the case, right? So I started skipping a little bit more consistently, and so
Yeah.
then I would start having these dreams of like, I've
Yeah.
not gone to class the entire semester, and now there's a test. What are you going to do?
Yep.
And
Right.
ever since then, every time I get stressed out, those are the dreams I have.
Super interesting. I wonder if
Yeah.
people who haven't waited tables get that one. Probably not, but we both
I
waited
mean,
tables.
I think, yeah, I think that the waiting tables ones, like of a friend of mine who's a bartender, his is he's got like 17 beer bottles like here against his arm, and he's trying to like speed open all of them, and like
Yeah.
he just never completes the line.
It's just
And I'm like,
continual speed open.
yeah, just continuously, just like continuously speed opening beers.
So I bartended too, and I did have twice the same one, but it was not around speed opening. It was around knocking stuff out of the well, and I'd have to remake it. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
was making all these drinks, and every time I went over to toss a new drink in, I would knock another one off, and it was this continuous. Glass would break on the floor, and it was this continuous. Like I would never get one drink further. It was always.
How far are you in the new book?
I only read the intro. I was wanting to get further into it, but I actually put some time on some other stuff, knowing that that was lower priority. But I really enjoyed the intro.
Man, because I got it and then it was out, and so like Melissa was like, "Hey, did you start that book yet?" And I was like, "Well, just the intro." And she goes, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "Well, here's the thing, it's the intro." And I always get very excited about intros, right?
Yes.
So I think I've read a little bit more than you do, but this book actually feels like it has the things that I was missing and really wanting and play bigger. Like this feels much more like
a manual.
Like this is a reference manual, right? So if it has 70% of the staying power that the intro has, this will probably be on the top shelf, because so far it just seems very do this, and this happens, which is exactly what I'm looking for in a book.
Yeah, very cool. I already know it's probably going to be top shelf because, like I said, I have a friend who's certified that took me through it, and I know it's coming.
Oh,
and
interesting.
There's 2 or 3 things in there that I've just not heard applied the way I've heard with this guy. And once again, this is one of those books where I've read all about productivity, and so have you. And so it's like, what can I really get out of this book? But I can tell you, I would be surprised if there's not 2 new concepts that you run across here that you just hadn't really thought about the way he does.
I mean, I'm always hoping for at least 2 when I'm reading one of these books, right? Because we both have read pretty broadly and deeply, on these topics and tangential topics and stuff like that. So if I can get 2 things I'm golden, right? If there's more than that, then that's obviously even better. But hopefully, I get 1 or 2 things that change how I think about it, or change how I approach, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Yep. It sparked an idea, so we'll probably go offline with that, because I've got some thoughts about restructuring some things already.
Okay.
And the way I plan for what's important and what gets done each week. I've got some thoughts. So, but I like it. I'm excited to dig into it. I plan to get a good chunk of it done this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to get a big chunk of it done this week. We'll see if that actually happens. Like, because it feels like one of those books that I'm not going to want to like speed read, because there are like lots of like infographics and things like that. So that simultaneously makes me excited, but also makes me realize that it's going to be more laborious. What a great word, laborious of a book.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna read through it, and then I'm gonna go back and do a second read with more intense look at the charts and the sequences and stuff like that. And so
interesting.
Yeah, I prefer to do that. I hate getting stopped down in the middle of a book, because I want to finish his whole arc of what he's trying to convey.
Yeah, I feel that.
Because I used to do that too, where I'd just stop in places that were interesting, and I would just be like, "Oh, but I want to know what happens. Like I want to know
Yeah.
where this is going." So
And
I
that
ended
was
up,
kind of my struggle with like the note taking that I was doing for the last book, right? Because it was like you finish a chapter, great. What are my thoughts on this chapter? I just want to read the next chapter.
right,
Like I don't really want to stop right now and document a bunch of like thoughts and feelings about the chapter. I'll do
right,
that later. And so like I was in this very kind of weird spot for a couple of days last month reading the other one because I was in two book clubs, the one that we're doing in Sherpa, and then I was connected with the guy on Lunch Club. I need to go finish those notes actually for that one I'm doing with him. But he started like a per chapter thing. Normally, I finish the whole book and just talk broadly about the topics of the book. So
right.
yeah, that was interesting. Um, I don't think this book will lend itself to being broken down by like chapter by chapter, or maybe it will because there is so much depth. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know.
Yep, for sure. I'll. There was a. I'm trying to think what the last book I did that for was, because it was actually written that way. Like each chapter or each 3 chapters was like a
Mhm.
section that was like walled off, and it was
Oh,
like,
that's
okay, I can
interesting.
stop and I can
Yeah.
think about this and I can dig into it and stuff. So, and I have noticed more and more books going to that structure. They don't all do it well, but part one, part two, part three, like, and there's
Yeah.
actually a sheet, that separates that in the book, which I actually kind of like. It makes it feel more like a thought out journey they're taking you on versus just straight through. And I'm fine with traditional too. It was just kind of a neat little thing.
Well,
In the right
like hold on, let me look at something. Um, because we have a version of this at the end of each chapter in my book, but it's just like a review, right? So there's like
yeah,
a review at the end of each chapter, right? And I
sure.
wish that we'd gone one step further and
Hmm.
had the review and then spots for people to write in their answers,
Yeah.
right? Because like I think most people are like me and they're like, "Ooh, I'm going to come back and do this."
Hmm.
Right? And then you don't because you forget and stuff like that. I in the majority of the time when I see that in a book, I don't do it in the book,
Yeah.
right?
No.
I'll do it in like a pad or like a
Yes.
note app or something like that. So
Yeah.
part
Exactly.
of me is happy that we did it the way that we did it. The other part of me, like,
Hmm.
that's the reason why school is taught the way that it is, right? You read a chapter, there's a pop quiz, there's what are
Right.
your thoughts about it and stuff like that. It forces you to hold the information slightly longer, which leads to better retention, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
I think that stuff is interesting.
Yep.
But we had to take Tina to the vet on, I think that was Thursday. Yeah. So,
All right.
um, yeah, I'm in here on a call. Yeah, on Thursday, and the dog just starts throwing up, right?
Ooh.
And so I'm in here on a call. I'm doing an interview. I'm interviewing a sales engineer to learn more about the role. Melissa comes in. She's like, "We got to take Tina to the vet." And I was just like, "What?" And she goes, "She won't stop throwing up. We got to go." And so I'm like, "Okay." So the guy on the call hears Melissa, and he goes, "Hey man, I have dogs. Go. See you later." And I was like, "Thank you so much." So
Well, that's cool.
everything was fine. Tina was fine, but we had to go to the emergency vet, which was not a whole lot of fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and yeah, now she's all good.
Well, that's
She,
good.
yeah,
I'm glad.
they were like, did she pass out or fall over? I said no. And like, okay, we're not going to do a bunch of blood work then. And I was kind of like, thank you. Um, so she got a little anti-nausea meds and a little shot, and she was totally good.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Wonder if she just ate something that she shouldn't have.
probably. Like she's in the backyard eating whatever she
Yeah.
eats,
Whatever
stuff
comes
like
out.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is a brand new neighborhood, so like a couple times, like she's walked back on the porch with like a long like construction nail like just in her mouth, and we're like, let's not eat that. So
Wow.
yeah, kind of interesting. So we're
Good
hyper
for her.
aware.
Good for her. She was
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
stretching it for you so it didn't hit your tire.
Yeah, yeah, you're not
Good
wrong.
dog. Thanks, Lassie. Where there's danger.
So, what are you looking forward to this week?
Yes. So this week, particularly, I've got a one-on-one with my boss.
Okay.
So that's a good check-in for the end of the year. I feel like that would be a good one because because it's in December and I started mid-year. It'll
Hmm.
feel like an actual
Wait,
kind
has
of
it
more
been 6 months
evaluation
that you've been
style.
there already?
June is when I started.
Holy crap, man. That's
I know.
insane.
Isn't that crazy?
It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
I know. So yeah, so this one's just going to feel more like an actual evaluation, even though it's not like we do monthly one-on-ones, so we kind of always know what's going on and where we stand and what we're working towards and stuff. So, but this one's just going to be a little bit more, timing wise, will be interesting to see. So I'm looking forward to that. That's Thursday, and then let's see.
Oh wow! Speaking of pitch bots.
Yeah, pitching, and you can't even get mad at them. It's just a bot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to be mad at.
Yeah,
Twitch is pretty bad about that too. I have found.
I think I mean, there's a version of it that sucks on every platform you can imagine.
For sure.
Right. And then as soon as someone figures out how to do how do I say this the right way? People get lost in the concept of doing the math backwards. Okay, so what they'll say is like, well, we're 20% to close, so that means if we want 200 deals, we need 4,000 messages going out the door, and it's like you're doing the math badly, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this stuff is. So as soon as someone can figure out how to do numbers at scale,
right? Well,
whatever that is,
they're looking on Twitch, and we have like no followers on Twitch, so I imagine we match every single criteria any bot would have when it comes to just numbers and following and stuff like that. So I get why we get this.
Yeah.
And it's not like bad English. You'll find a lot of times these bots are weird and have bad English. Yeah. It's just uninspiring is what it is.
Yeah.
Great.
It's just
great.
Yeah. Once again, someone trying way too hard to avoid the sales label, the sales role, the sales activities.
I'm sorry, John. I gotta go talk to Tar Jacks on BN. Like he's got a deal here. I gotta go. Like said no one ever when they got.
Yeah, we're gonna interrupt our live stream to have a conversation with a grifter. Yeah, exactly. That makes.
You want to come on the air? Let's
It's just the Matrix screen whenever we bring him on the screen.
Yeah. No, it's actually Keanu Reeves. On screen, it's Keanu. What?
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
And side topic, I'm so excited for Constantine 2. I went back and watched Constantine 1.
Are they making a second one?
Yeah, they just announced it this past week.
Huh, I didn't know that.
They asked him on, what's his name? Some talk show. Is there any project that you wish you could go back and redo or work on again? And he gave the patting answer. He was like, no, each time had its thing, and I love this, and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, there's one. And he was like, what? He's like, Constantine. Because apparently he loves the comics, right? He even has his own comic. Like, I don't know if you know, but like he literally has his own comic where he is the main protagonist, and it's based on him, and he owns the label and whatnot. So
interesting. Anyway, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I went back and watched the old one, and it's kind of corny because it's from like 2001 or something. Or 2003
a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's DC, so it's like it's
dark and
canon,
heavy, and
as they say.
Interesting. Okay.
What about you this week? What's your thing?
I have a couple more SDR interviews. I'm really excited about putting the right two people into this organization that I'm working with. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited for a little bit lighter of a week as far as call volume goes. Like last week, I had 2 days that had 7 hours of nothing but Zooms. So I'm excited to have not a single day that has 7 hours of, well, not yet anyway. It might get filled up and taken over.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Well,
and I'm finishing up. I've been working on this one project with a commercial real estate firm. We brought in a CRM for them. I've onboarded all the brokers individually, right? We set up some templates for them. We've got everything all synced up. I'm onboarding the last broker in this organization today. So everyone will be onboarded. They know how the system works. And then, yeah, they should be more or less set up for success. They have a sales admin who has been on all the onboarding calls. I've really been showing her some some stuff about how to manage this internally. I'm excited for what they're going to do with the system and how it helps them. So that's always very exciting for me.
Yep. That's good. It's fun.
Yeah.
Fun projects are a great way to spend the week, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes, very much so.
Let's do more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I've got a just random calls. I'm trying to learn more about the sales engineering role. One, because it's, as a sales nerd, this is not a role that I see get discussed a lot. And so it's also a role that Sean can help a lot on a partnership play, but not everyone is going to be a good partner for it. So I'm doing lots of outreach and conversations around how do different organizations use the sales engineering role and what would mean, for targeting wise, that they're a good fit for Sean and the Accruvia project or not a good fit for Sean and the Accruvia project. So
Right.
having lots of discussions with those people, and man, what a cool role if you can find your way into it. Typically your comp is about 80-20 versus like 50-50 or 40-60. Usually your comp comes from like what the team does. It's not like individual produce results. And a lot of times you're brought in as the technical advisor, right, the subject matter expert, as opposed to just like the salesperson. So there's some real cool nuance to it, and some brands use it very, very well, and other brands treat it just like they treat regular other sales roles, and it's the Wild West and figure it out as you go and all that other stuff. So
Right.
that's been very interesting. I don't know what the final form of that content is going to be, but I do hope we can meaningfully put that role on the map for people who were very technical but also like the human side of it. Because if you like both sides of this thing, you can think linearly and problem solve, but also we're okay talking to people. Like, this could be a great role for those people.
Yeah, it's really interesting, all the different roles that are going to evolve and that are evolving just based on new sections of tech invading old areas. So,
and the other facet of that I find very interesting is whenever like a new marketing silo comes out, the jobs that it creates around those things. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, media buying wasn't a role that you could go out and like sell yourself on in a freelance kind of way, right? You had to have an agency because you had to do everything around it. And now, like, I know people who just media buy. I know people who do just creative for ads or just copywriting for landing pages, right? I love how much like job creation it creates in the freelancing kind of gig economy for all of these people. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I really like that. You can be an extreme specialist and still make good money.
Yes.
That's really the most important part.
The extreme specialists are the people who make the most money. Like the guy who's writing landing pages for,
fintech companies or something.
Yeah. For like fintech only companies or, anything with that many adjectives that define kind of what you do and who you do it for is probably going to be very specialized and probably, you can command. You can command some high fees for that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's cool. Cool, man. Well, I've got let's see, I've got some training this morning. I only have one client call today.
Okay.
Now I've got two, but that's how I want it. I want Mondays to be light so I can really plan and train and keep Mondays heavy on the internal side.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your day?
So Mondays have been historically super light. So no meetings, just planning, thinking, strategizing. Right. But my weeks are becoming so busy that like I'm starting to cannibalize my planning day of Monday, which I don't really love, but you harvest when the crop is ready kind of situation. So my light day, I have 3 calls. I'm doing that last onboarding today because this is when they're available. I had my regular sales sync with Sean to talk about the activities and how they're going on Mondays, and then I'm doing an interview with a sales engineer today as well. So 3 meetings. I should be done by 3-ish. So
cool. You know what we should talk about next Monday?
What's that?
The new format.
We should
chat like a little more like we're going to in the new format on next show, just to start dry running and talking about it and seeing what people think here.
Yeah, we should do that.
Build in public.
Yeah, absolutely. So to that end, we're a little bit stuck on the group of people we want the new show to be most relevant for, right?
Mhm.
Who we're trying to help very specifically. So, you know, the Jake and I are very idea driven at this stage, right? So we're both we have this really cool idea, but
Yeah.
you can't present an idea without first presenting it to a certain audience first,
Right.
is the thing that we both have learned over time. So
Yep. Yep.
we work, you know, and, you know, there for a while, we're both very much in the entrepreneurial kind of like market and startups and everything. And now that shifted a little bit because Jake's role inside of his company, he's working with like some major brands and everything. So
Mhm.
we're trying to figure out, do we optimize this for the entrepreneurial market, or do we optimize this for like the bigger business kind of thing? Because how we talk about it will change and the steps necessary will change. So that's kind of where we are right now,
Yeah.
if anyone is curious about it. Um,
Yep.
because as much as we both want to kind of dig in there about like, well, here's Jake's version of the idea and here's what it means and here's mine,
Yeah.
that's not super helpful as far as creating content that speaks to a pocket of people, because we'll
Right.
be trying to speak to multiple pockets of people, which means we're not really talking to anybody.
Right. Not going very deep on any of it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
exactly. And I'm looking forward to it because I'm looking forward to going deep on really specific things for a whole whole episode, to really dig into one specific problem and the nuances around it and how it affects people and what people are doing about it. And so yeah, it'll be fun once we finally get that nailed down and figured out exactly who it is that the content is for, so that we can, it makes for better stories and examples too.
agreed.
Go
Yeah.
dig into the specifics and not have to spend time talking around it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's cool.
That was, you know, coming out of the Play Bigger book, it was a bit of a letdown, but like the more that I think about it, the examples they used made the book as good as it was. Right.
Yeah.
And just constantly
Yeah.
going like those examples are so clear, right? And it really kind of reinforces the mission that they're on.
Mhm.
You know, that comes from really kind of knowing like the audience of the book.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And they even at the end of maybe chapter 2, I think it was, said, if you're this way, this is not for you. Stop reading it. If you're this way, keep reading.
That felt a little pushy, direct response, kind of grifty
Sure.
a little bit,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
Um,
The presentation wasn't
but
great, but
yeah,
the who we're not for was there. For
yeah,
sure.
exactly, for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. So let's wrap this up for today. Jake and I are going to be talking about this amongst ourselves about what this is going to be for and what does that mean for how we think about it. But yeah,
mhm.
we'll keep everyone in the loop, because this is, you know, no one gets better by doing things without community and without other people around them.
Exactly. Exactly. So particularly Dylan, Mike, Michelle, even for
Michelle.
sure. We want to hear your feedback. Want to know
Yeah.
specific things, topics. I think once we figure out exactly who the audience is, we can start diving into the topics specifically to start
Agreed.
covering, and then we'll start looking for those guests.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, and we already have a couple in mind because we know that they're going to fit somehow. We just have to figure out the angle we want to take. Right.
Yes. Exactly right. Oops.
Cool. All right. Well, that's what I got for today. How about you? Anything else going on?
That's it, man. I'm ready to get into it.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, then thanks for everyone for coming and checking in. We had a good time chatting around. So
Yes, thanks for hanging out, Tars, Jack, Selbin. Appreciate that.
Exactly.
No, but thank you to Dylan, thank you to Mike, thank you to Michelle. You guys are always awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us. And yeah, we'll see you guys next Monday. Have a great week.
Yeah. Have a great week, all.